Sridhar sir?
Sridhar sir, we can start now.
Okay, thank you very much. I must be thankful to all of you here. And basically, I must be thankful to first Ruchi Kandelwar ma'am, who actually got connected through LinkedIn to me. And soon after, she sent me a message that will you be able to take a session here. That was a surprise for me. Thank you very much for inviting me, and all the organizers here, and also the resource person who is sitting here also. Thank you so much. And today I'll be discussing something about our web-based solutions.
Sridhar sir, let me just introduce you to the participants.
Yeah.
Give me 2 minutes. Thank you. So I welcome all the participants to the 6th day of Faculty Development Program. Today we are having Dr. S.N. Sridhara with us in the first session. Dr. Sridhara is a Master's and PhD in Aerospace Engineering from Indian Institute of Science. He has successfully completed a total of 75 lakhs of rupees worth of research and consultancy projects. He's conducted several training programs for companies like TVS, Mahindra, Bosch, Infosys, etc. He's guided 8 research scholars and has 2 textbooks and more than 30 research papers published in national international journals to his credit. He has also presented papers in a number of national international conferences. He has an academic experience of over 30 years and is currently working as the director of Amity School of Engineering and Technology, Gurugram. He's been awarded with Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan National Award for Best Engineering College Principal in 2015. This was awarded during the Indian Society for Technical Education National Annual Convention. He's also been awarded the Excellent Principal in Karnataka Award during the 2nd National Karnataka Education Summit in 2016. And he's also been awarded the Vocational Excellence Award from Rotary Bangalore for Excellence in Education Services rendered in 2014. It's a pleasure for us, sir, to welcome you to this session of the FTP. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll be sharing my screen now. So today I'll be going through this applications of ICT tools in teaching and learning FDP. Under that, I'll be covering today the web-based resources for the teaching and learning process. So I'll just touch upon a small, though actually you have gone through all the ICT tools at present, just to start with, I'll warm up. I'm just taking it up. So teaching basically refers to the act of transfer of knowledge and skills from the teacher to the others. The teacher need not be always, standing in front of the board or giving webinar. It could be even in life as well. And then ICT basically refers to, all of you know that information communication technology. I will not spend much time because that is all about that what you are discussing about. And when you come to the teaching and ICT, this particular cartoon I picked up. Many of the cartoons I picked up from the website, and I have given the picture credits for all of them. This clearly shows we need to actually go by hybrid type of teaching, and this is what you find that in a classroom you also find the systems placed in it. And if you try to look at the technological advancements, so I would say that with the advancement of technology, the tools and techniques become obsolete within a short period. I'll be showing a small cartoon again, picked up from the internet here. So the teacher actually, teaching something, and she says, due to recent technological advancements, everything I taught you about the computer is no longer valid. That means just now it has become obsolete. Now this is a sort of, like a cartoon, but I would say that this is the reality as well. So we need to keep updating ourselves every day. And if you look at the components of ICT, it involves many electronic appliances and related processes such as computer, mobile, satellite communication, video conferencing, and several other things. Suppose if you try to look at what are the choices available for us in a digital classroom, you could see a tab, a mobile, and many things. But apart from that, you should also see there is a notepad, and also a pencil is available, and pencil and also the hard paper to be written down. So I think this is an essential thing which may not come under digital, but I would say it is digital as well. Basically because it's of ease of using, and then immediately you can flash it out even in front of the screen also if you want to draw a diagram, etc. and so on. And if you try to look at the ICT today, it has reached even the kids. So it is fast expanding, and it's easy to reach the kid as well, very, very fast. So this is one small cartoon which I picked up. It shows exactly that the kids are also enjoying that learning through ICT. And there is one more actually little irony. Teacher is telling here, the syllabus this year has the following apps. So now the tool is actually taking over the topic itself. So many a time it so happens that if you don't understand the tool properly, we need to learn the tool itself. So it becomes a tool. It looks like tool is having supremacy over the topic itself, but sometimes we need to control it. The tool must aid only the topic or the course delivery. And now there is one diagram which I'm showing. I think all of you would have seen this. Basically, it's a video, but I have a photograph here. She's a teacher from Pune. She used, some sort of imagination to record or also to make an online, the web telecast of her webinar or the class. You can see that how she has used the Jugaad to make it out. This is what I call it as a third dimension creativity, and she has become popular because of this available, the use of available resources with her to telecast this. What is the role of ICT in education? We will have distance learning via electronic media. Today, what is we are realizing it, and it is more of student-centric learning with open sources. Today, actually, there are a lot of sources available for the student, so the student can choose what they want to learn and in which way they want to learn. So it is more of student-centric. Of course, they need teachers, but it is more of student-centric learning. What you find because of ICT and change of teaching and learning process with the help of technological advancements. So earlier we were using the blackboard or the whiteboard and we used to write it out. Now you have enough number of opportunities for you. You can actually display videos, you can do you can show animations, you can bring virtual reality, whatnot. All this is the boon for teaching and learning process. Now actually in 2009 there was a paper which actually identified what are the barriers in implementation of ICT in education. One may wonder why I'm taking 2009 and it is 2010 now. What I'm mentioning here, these have been debated over and over, and even in 2020, the same points have been debated. So there is a resistance to change, both in the, all the three components, the student, the authorities of the school, and also the faculty. There is a resistance to change. We can't help it. There is lack of training given. Suddenly you have to, they'll be pushing you to use this. And lack of time, of course, to prepare all this for the faculty, and also lack of time for the students to get used to it. And lack of access, maybe the internet access is not there or the facilities are not available. And there's one more thing which I always say, that lack of continued technical support. But fortunately, the Amity University, I keep seeing here also, we are all into the WhatsApp group of technical support, and every time anything happens within 5 to 10 minutes, they take the remote control of our PC and they even actually give a solution to the PC. This type of control is very, very important. So there is one thing more which I just wanted to show you. The teachers are not actually limited to do only one task now. There's a multitasking. So I picked up another picture here. A teacher is doing a lot of multitasking. When I was searching for this types of pictures, I found many cartoons wherein the teacher was appearing little stressed with all this work. Now I find this is more interesting, that this fellow is happy and also having a sip of coffee or tea, whatever it is. And this is the way actually we need to do some multitasking. Of course, there is always a question that whether the multitasking, will decrease the quality of the work which each you are doing. I would say that if you try to plan it properly, both resource and time, it may not. But if you think it is a stress and then try to, take all of them together beyond our capacity, definitely it's going to drop our the level of quality as well in teaching and whatever the work we are doing. What are the commonly used ICT tools? You may wonder that I'm going to talk about radio and TV, but these are the first fundamental ICT tools which even now are being used. I'll just take you through this. And also there are some web based resource packages like classroom management tools are there. Audio video material for teaching is available. Animation for creating experiential learning is available. Virtual laboratories for experiential learning is there. Learning management tools are there. And also the medium what we have for all this is a satellite to transmit radio, TV as well as internet bandwidth. So without the satellite, these would have not been possible. Now I will take first one, that is the primary ICT tools as radio and TV. And actually all of us are neglecting this particular one at the age of internet era, but these are still actually being ruled even at rural as well as in the in the urban area also. The radio and TV are very powerful tools, and which can reach any remote village also. Even today, actually, as soon as the lockdown was announced in India, we find some of the students who are stuck in the village are unable to get a very good bandwidth, and because of that, we are unable to reach them through whatever we are doing in the through webinars or Google Meet or whatever it is. Now, these are popularly being used for community training in primary, secondary, and higher school education, colleges and universities, even today. I will take a small journey of that. So, if you look at the radio education services in India, there was a school broadcast in 1923 in Delhi, and you may wonder before independence. And adult education and community development programs were held in 1937 in the British rule. And the radio was actually used to give sort of training and also sort of awareness for the people towards hygiene, health, etc., and so on. Of course, adult education also started during that particular time. And there are forum and home broadcast programs in 1965. This became very popular, and we are finding it continuation of that. You also find in the radio IGNO air broadcast, which started in 1992. Even today, you find lot many lessons which are being telecast through the radio from IGNO. And IGNO Air Interactive Radio Counseling started in 1998. This is an advanced version of the air broadcast where there is an interactive counseling. See, for example, the participants could call them over the phone, and then they could actually try to connect to them and ask questions and so on. So that's how it became little interactive. Earlier, it was only one-sided. They used to actually broadcast. The students have to note down and then write to them later if they have any clarification or interaction to be made. Now we have in 2001 onwards, Gyanvani, the educational FM radio channel of India. It's a 24 hours channel. You find almost all sorts of the subjects are being taught, and especially on the social sciences, you find plenty of them in the Gyanvani. And then also when you come to the TV, the role of TV in education thing and all, we have secondary school TV telecast in 1961 started in Delhi again. And Delhi Agricultural Television, that is DATV project, Krishi Darshan started in 1966. And Satellite Instructional Television Experiment Site in 1975. This is again used for educating rural mass. And then Post Site project in 97 for educating rural mass, again advanced version of it. And then Indian National Satellite Project INSAT came in picture 1992. And there was sort of mammoth explosion happened in terms of ICT using this particular TV. And UGC actually pitched in, and they started using or giving higher education television project in 1984. And IGNO, the Doordarshan telecast, even today they have the IGNO channels. There are 6 channels of IGNOs in the Doordarshan, and there are about 6 of them now. And GAN Doordarshan education channel are there. So this actually is the total history of the TV that is being still used in India as one of the ICT tool. And it's very powerful because it reaches the mass very fast, and you don't require a network or something. You just require a signal, a TV signal or a radio signal, which you can actually catch from the antenna. And then there are web-based resources and packages which are now being actually coming into forefront. And in this, basically, we look at, I have a classification which I made myself, that how do we actually classify these things. The first one is actually classroom management tool. Then we have audio video material for teaching, the animation for creating experiential learning, the virtual laboratories for experiential learning, the learning management tools, and the medium is basically internet bandwidth. If you do have a very good bandwidth, you can have plenty of good, pleasant experiential learning or experience of this particular web-based resources and packages. We will take one by one and then try to discuss that what is the current status and what is the future as well. Suppose you take up the classroom management, what all actually this ICT will contain. Nowadays, there are plenty of packages are available by many companies. They give you a whole solution for the classroom management. What all it includes, basically attendance management, timetabling and scheduling. And in fact, this is a big problem. Suppose you have about 400 faculty, 500 faculty with, let me say, 4,000 students and lot many classes. Putting a timetable and scheduling becomes a challenge if you're doing manually. Now, these types of classroom management packages are going to help us. So quickly, actually, we can schedule the conditions there that so and so faculty is expert in so and so. They want to take this, and this is the first hour, this is the last hour preference, etc. Immediately, you get timetable and scheduling. A small touch up manually will actually give you everything. Curriculum management is a fantastic opportunity for all of us. Basically, we had recently in Amity University, Gurgaon here, that we had our BOS meeting through this particular classroom management package, and also through ICT. And then basically, the industry connect was there, the research institution connect was there, our alumni connect was there, and many corporates also got connected. So the curriculum management can also be implemented in the many of the packages like this. It has many things like, say for example, somebody floats a curriculum that will be distributed to somebody else who will give a their opinion, and then finally it goes to second level, third level, and at the end actually you will come out with the curriculum outcome in terms of the program outcome and also the COs and POs, etc. All those can be done very well with the classroom management packages. There is a library management, another very important. We are all going digital nowadays, and you don't have to visit library as well, especially for the research papers at present, and also some of the e-books. You can actually access all of them at your desktop, and this is fantastic. This is actually integrated in the classroom management. Just log in through your credentials, and you will be having access to all of them. And also the progress report for the kids, and of course the progress report is not only for the kids, it's also for the faculty, like how much I have covered, how much I have completed my syllabus, and what is left out, and what all the other tools I have, which tool I have not used, etc., and so on. And of course, a few of these classroom management are now coupled with artificial intelligence software, the capability, wherein it keeps telling that, like this is your pace and you may not reach this particular one, you are going with this pace. This kid is not learning, you should counsel, etc., are coming through. Then the mentoring. Mentoring is also very good actually. The mentoring connects parents, students, as well as faculty, and also the management. So we keep watching the progress of the kid, and then we try to understand what is happening at the kid part, and immediately the mentoring will be happening online. And the parents also will know that what is the effort by the school or the college or the university that our kids are in looped in, and how they are being mentored. And the faculty will know that how they are reaching the students, and the management will know like how the students are interacting with the faculty and faculty are interacting with the students. And then there is another important thing, life cycle documenting, that is admission to alumni. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to maintain anything which is completely with the printed copies or what we call hard copies. Almost everything is there. See, a student who has passed out from Amity, maybe after 10 years or 12 years, if a query comes from a abroad university, asking for the curriculum status of this particular student or credentials, immediately they don't have to go and search for the hard copies or stored somewhere in the storeroom, etc. It's just a click of a button. It will say that what is this, the credit, etc., and then immediately it can be sent out. Now the next thing actually is I'm just showing a few of the important or very what do you call the popular some of the classroom teaching the classroom management packages we find. One is EDSB, there is Adobe Connect, there is Class Dojo. In fact, EDSB is a worldwide. It has got a worldwide existence, and Adobe Connect is also like that, and as well as Class Dojo is there, Edomo is there, TCS Technology. Of course, it is large capital in India. Also, it is catching up a lot of abroad schools and universities. And Amity University has got developed its own classroom teaching. The classroom management one. It's called Amazon. Very efficient one. We find that we can do almost anything, whatever I just explained now. And these are the popular ones. Now, if you look at what are the learning materials which is available from the web sources. So I'm going one by one. First, I looked at the classroom management. Now, let me look at what are the web material sources that a faculty can access. So the first one I'm showing you the research paper searching. So there are a lot many, the websites where you can actually go and plug in there and then put the keyword. You will find your paper, at least in terms of title or the abstract. And if you want to retract the complete paper, probably you will have to search for it, or you will have to pay for that. And most of the institutions would have had their own arrangement for these with these companies, maybe like Science Journal, etc. So they can actually download it. Now these are very popular one which I have shown there. CiteSeerX, Scholar.Google, many people would have already used. Paper.SAE for automotive and mechanical as well as electromechanical systems. Academic research is there. BioOnline for biomedical and other things, and many things are there. And it is not that actually we'll be looking only for the research material in terms of the research journals. We will also look for the patents. And if you try to look at which are the patent, search tools, you can say that patents.google, you can find anything, so that you will also find a new idea from there, and that you can use it for your teaching as well. And similarly, US up to World Dispatch and India Online, IP India Online, all these are actually the search engines for the patents. Quickly you can search them and then try to plug in your idea into it, and then also you can of course write your own patent overcoming the shortcomings of this particular patent which you can find in this. And now if you try to look at what all the open access sources we have in India, and some of the Indian universities also have this particular one. For example, Shodh Ganga. If you try to go to Shodh Ganga, it is basically a inflibnet initiative with UGC. It's a reservoir of Indian thesis wherein all universities regulated by UGC in India submit the thesis as a repository to Shodh Ganga. So you find more than 1 million theses there so far, and out of that actually about 2,000 of them are completely digitized, means you can go to every page, and a few of them are in the process of conversion. And of course, this Shodh Ganga is also a better source for plagiarism check, etc., and so on. And this is a free resource, so anybody can go in. Especially, you should log in through your institutional credentials. It becomes free for you. You can download the entire thesis and also study that. This is one part which is really a very good source. So it is given by in the Shodh Ganga InflibNet. And then we have learning material web sources in the open source like OpenDOER. Is a global directory of open access academic repositories. Wherever the open books are available, you can actually access from this. It lists all other open access full text provider web sources. Billions of books are available even in this, but mostly like about 60 to 70% of them are from the social sciences, and remaining are from the direct sciences. And then we also have open access called DSpace of IIT Bombay. This is another initiative by HR of our government of India. So it's an institutional repository of IIT Bombay. It's a research produced at IITB, so you get almost everything of the research, including white papers. So there is full text of book chapters, conference proceeding papers, technical report, journal preprints, postprints, working papers, patents, etc., and whatnot. So all these are available. What I am trying to mention today is the resources what are available for the faculty and as well as for the students is enormous now. I go a little further again to say what are the open access thing, like repositories of Indian Academy Sciences. There is an open access repository for publications of fellows of Indian Academy Sciences, and you find that the social media sharing portals like ResearchGate, etc., Scholar.Google, which is also available. And if you go to the ResearchGate and Scholar.Google, not all of them you will get the full length paper or the full length text, but most of them, I mean, I would say that whichever you are looking for, more than 50% of them may be available free of cost. Otherwise, at least you will get a link there. What is the title of the paper? What is its abstract? Where it is available? And you can directly go to that particular website of a journal or a text or a publisher, then start downloading either through payment or free, depending on what access you are at. And then there are other things like, the same thing which I'm going to say that. Now there is another very interesting thing, especially for engineering and science, and this is an initiative done by IIT Chennai and also IIT Mumbai. This national portal for telecom education, lessons. You find nearly about 1 lakh courses here, and most of them are videos. Not only videos, there is an opportunity there. You can even download some of the notes which are created by IIT professors and IISc professors, also other renowned professors from selected renowned institutions as well. And there is one more advantage with that. Recently they have started actually offering NPTEL distance education programs, and these programs are certification programs. Both staff and student can actually access it, and UGC has permitted the student actually to credit any one of these courses and make it equivalent to the courses that is being offered in a particular university. Fantastic one. The student will learn themselves and the teacher is somewhere else, and they will learn, this is something like an experiential learning, and they keep going. There is something called Bookfee. There are about 2.2 million free ebooks which are available in this, plenty of them. And then you also have INDEST AICTE consortia. They have actually, it's called Indian National Digital Library of Engineering, Science and Technology. And here there are two things. One is actually getting an ebook. The other one is exchange of books between two libraries or library and an institution and so on. Suppose I have a very good, a book which is very expensive and may not be available elsewhere, and another library person can actually borrow it from me, either physically or electronically, depending on the publication rights we have. And then there is a Delnet. I think this is one, the thing where actually people can borrow the books from one library to another books. At present, it is mostly in the hard copy or the printed copy. They have not gone to the e-copy borrowing. And if some of the books are e-copy rights, then I think probably they can go for it. But still, they have not got the e-copy transfers. But actually, you can transfer any book from one library to another library and return it after you accessed it. Now there are many platforms. So far, we have seen the first one, classroom management tools. The second one, which are the sources for actually accessing some good material. Now I'll be discussing something about online meeting platforms. Plenty of them are there. At present, we are using Zoom here. So there's a Google Meet, MS Team. Many of them are free. Many of them are paid with higher version or fully paid. Then we have Cisco WebEx, GoToMeeting, then TeamViewer, Skype, Giant.me, Zoom, Apache Open Meeting, Google Hangout. Sometimes I have seen that some of my teachers, for the students who cannot access any of these, they have used even WhatsApp video also. Maybe it's one-sided many a time, but actually they have used it also. But in the WhatsApp video, there is a limitation that how many people can watch you is a difficult problem. I mean, it's a limitation on that. But there are other things which you can look at. Now the question comes, we have plenty of them. What all the attributes which we should be looking for when you are looking for a good platform for teaching learning, and especially for the meeting platform. So if you look at that, the required attributes are, first thing is the adaptability of that particular software. It should be adaptable to any desktop, whatever the make it is, starting from iMac to Windows or whatever it is, to all the laptops and also to the mobile phones. And it should not be heavy as well. This is one more thing. If it is heavy in terms of memory requirement, etc., it becomes useless, especially when you go to the mobile phone. And also, you should not eat too much of the internet bandwidth. And you should have a good video quality. This is really a challenging. Many of them will try to compromise depending on what system you have. And you should have a text chat facility and QA feature. I think I can see lot many charts and question papers, question and answer may be already running through here. And this is one more thing. Recording of attendance of the participants is a very, very important thing sometimes. Many a time it may not be possible if you are using your free softwares. This recording of attendance, there are two ways. One is actually it gives you the complete status, stating that who entered at what time and who left at what time and what are their actions or what are their activities, whether they were participating in QA or whether actually writing a chat or etc. There is something artificial intelligence coming through to the recording of attendance now, which actually catches the video of every person, or actually there's snapshots at every intervals, maybe about 10 seconds or 50 seconds or 30 seconds at random, and it will try to find out whether I'm alert or not. There are so many persons who are looking at it, and this artificial intelligence will take snapshots of it and immediately it warns, or it tells the speaker that okay, your class is becoming boring, you should change yourself. So these types of things are coming. So people will be looking more from here. And then there is also video and audio recording facility, of course, a primary thing. And this is one more thing: privacy between speakers and participants, and then control features for meeting the meeting organizers. There is one thing which I want to say. Recently, I was actually participating in one of the incubation, webinar, and we were actually competing for one of the incubation idea which we had. And when we all went in for the first time, and they gave an introduction and they said you will be now going to your meeting rooms or your waiting rooms. So nearly about 25 waiting rooms were allotted for the 25 batches, and we were not knowing that what is happening in the other batches or the presentation. And these types of facilities are also available, and therefore there should be privacy between speakers and participants in many things. And that actually there were incidences that people were using Zoom, or I may not be able to tell that, and it was a paid version, and immediately some unwanted pictures were floated by some people, and this became a problem. And somebody is thinking about like, okay, this is not useful, etc., or this is really bad, etc., and so on. The last one, or not the least one, is security and encryption. This is very, very important one. Most of the paid versions actually gives you very good security, and end to end it is encrypted, so that nobody other than who are actually accessing this will be able to crack this out. These are the major features which people will be looking in as an attribute in the online meeting platforms. And of course, the screen sharing, that's what I'm doing now. These are the major things. And dial-in option, many a times, see, for example, somebody is actually not plugged in, I can actually dial them through their platforms or whatever it is. Okay. Now, if you try to look at the platforms are seen, now let me go actually to the virtual labs also. What is a virtual lab? See, for example, once the lockdown was declared, immediately we had some problem there. The problem is all our laboratories were locked. Nobody can access the laboratories. And fortunately, actually, some of those labs were introduced to our students. Now, how do we actually tell the students to do exams, take exams, or work on it? There are virtual labs which actually are very good initiative for the students to access digitally and then start working. So they are highly useful for experiential learning. You can do lot many experiments in it, etc., and so on. And many virtual lab softwares are available both on free and paid version. Out of that, there is one very popular free version, which is coming from vlab.co.in. Again, this is the initiation of our uh, human resource department of our Indian government, and it is completely free. There are a lot of, about 9 IITs have combined together, and they have created these virtual labs in almost everything, starting from physics, chemistry, electronics, computer, the mechanical, civil, all of them. How do they do that? Basically, see, for example, there is a mechanical machine, and you would like to, do a virtual lab into it. The mechanical machine is mathematically modeled, and the inputs are given mathematically. The outputs are taken out mathematically for varying inputs. For example, all of us know our MATLAB, Simulink. Suppose I make a MATLAB Simulink thing and then make it as a black box or something where you have to give some input and then control variables and then you get the output. And therefore, the students will be able to make a lot of changes in it, especially in the electronics and of course in the medical also. I think you must be, everybody will be aware. Nowadays, the medical education is becoming completely digital. In fact, the complete anatomy of the body can be seen digitally in 3D. And these are also under virtual labs. Completely in 3D, they can see. They don't have to dissect the bodies. They don't have to, feel embarrassed or etc. and so on. They can go to the each and every part of it. And one advantage with that is in the anatomy, starting from the minutest blood vessels to the muscles to whatnot, everything can be seen in one. So the virtual labs are becoming very, very popular now. And especially after lockdown, there are a lot of hits in the Google to find for virtual labs as well. There are some other things other than this platform. See, for example, you go to, I'm from mechanical background and aerospace background. I find lot many facilities in the web available. See, for example, I would like to know how is the kinematics of a chain works actually, how the mechanism works. So I can actually go to that particular website, click it, and immediately it starts operating. Maybe a gear, how the gear actually transmits the load to something else, etc., and so on. And similarly for automotive things, and then the flow through the nozzle, we find lot many things. And of course, this is available even for any other things also. Now I will be coming to the next one, basically on the learning management system. My next speaker is going to speak more about it. I'll just give a touch upon on particularly what is this, etc., and what do we actually are doing with ALMS here. Only a small portion, but because it is being covered largely by my next speaker, or also would have been already covered a bit earlier. So a learning management system is used for these things. You can see as the LMS is used for repository of learning material. It is used for delivery of contents, monitoring and learning of monitoring the learning by students, analyzing the teacher's efficacy and reach with the students, evaluation of learning by students, use of learner analytics to estimate the student performance well before the assessment. Now, this is where actually the learning management system becomes very handy. And this also actually helps. See, for example, one particular teacher or a resource person creates a very good learning material or a content that can be actually shared either fully or partly or partially, so that everybody can use it. And that reduces the total reinventing of the wheel, and you can use many things. And because this is completely digital, there is no limitation. For example, you can have videos downloaded from somewhere. You can connect the videos to YouTube, so it need not be actually loaded heavily onto this LMS system. Just internet access is required. Many a time you can also have many the connectivities between the online classes which is happening elsewhere and also connect it across. And many of the international universities, when they want to couple with or collaborate with other national universities, the first platform they will be having is a learning management system. And the last one, which I just want to bring it to your notice and then also have more discussion maybe in the next seminar as well, is the use of learner analytics to estimate the student performance well before assessment. This comes under basically the because of artificial intelligence, implementation of artificial intelligence, we are having a lot of learner analytics. See, for example, I have a class of 50 and I'm teaching. And also actually I put a lot of learning material for the quiz and etc. and so on. Now we have the artificial intelligence, which will be actually have a, the observation on this the student learning in terms of how many times they accessed your notes, or how many times they went through that, how many times they discussed in the open chat, how many times they approached the teacher, and similarly what type of assignments they are giving. Many of the assignments are also actually evaluated with artificial intelligence, including not only MCQs, including the long the sentences or long phrase questions also they will try to find out. So this is a very good fantastic tool, and I have found a few of the papers which is already available in some of the LMS, that the learner analytics is used to estimate the student performance. well before I conduct an exam, I'll be knowing that, okay, the performance of the student is probably at this level. And therefore, what more I can do for the student to elevate himself or herself can also be actually, identified. This is a fantastic tool which we try to find it out. There are many open sources for LMS. The Moodle is the one. I think many of us already using it, or already we have made a deposit of our few of the courses in the Moodle. So the Moodle is the one. Camilio is one. Open edX is there. Totara Learn is there. Canvas there. Out of that, the Moodle is a fantastic tool. And Amity has got its own learning management system. All of us know it is ALMS to support the teaching and learning initiatives for a better interactive and also the flow of learning of materials. Out of that, I think I will take up the Moodle. I think it is not very clear to see, but I'll read it out for you. There are 1,59,000 sites, and there are about 2.6 crore courses are available, and there are about 21 crore users are available, and so on. So this is the platform where you can find, and it's free basically. It is free. That's one thing we should understand. Of course, another one people will be immediately remembering, Coursera is catching up, and Coursera has got lot many other courses which are both free and also paid. And Coursera, I'm not writing here because it's more a paid version, but it's a very good course, the repository as well as a learning management system, because it connects the professors from universities across the universe, and therefore you can actually become a student of any professor who is actually in a very renowned institution, and then you can learn from him. This is the power of LMS system what we have. And then what features we have in ALMS, because I'm also the coordinator for this particular one. So in our Amity LMS, we have these particular sort of things like recorded video lectures and quizzes we can do. We can post the content and upload files. We can actually post the assignments and receive the assignments as well, and then try to understand it. Assessment is both MCQ is there. And advantage of this is basically, suppose I have a question bank of 100 questions, I can pull out randomly. Suppose I have 30 people or 30 students. Now everybody will get a random question from this question bank. That is one part. Another part, suppose I say I set only 10 questions, but now the choices may be actually, randomized, or the order of appearance can be randomized. So like that, actually we can keep testing the students' performance on anonymously also from outside. That is one part. Second part, it has an access actually to also evaluate small short, the short question or short answered one. Suppose I say I gave 2 to 3 or 5 important keywords in a short answer, it will be searching for that keyword and it will make the first assessment. Suppose if these keywords are not used by the student, and immediately it will say that, okay, this is not that good, or how many times are used, it will say this many times it has been used, but your intervention is again required. You can make announcements which immediately goes to their mailbox, and then it tells it. Grade centers are there, immediately student will come to know, as well as we can also grade them. And of course, this is a very important one, a discussion board. Discussion board is something like a chat rooms wherein the students of a particular class can be made one particular discussion board, maybe with teacher or without teacher, and then they can start discussing about that particular one. So the peer learning will happen. A peer learning is another very, very important learning in most of the learning education that we are looking at. And there is also a short video lecture and open source which people can actually go through. Students can view before the class session, and class time can be devoted, etc. These are all the things which they can do. Faculty members can upload all the course related to textual content such as syllabus, presentation files, images, URLs, videos, and so on. And announcements can be done. And there is a grade center which I already discussed with you. There are discussion boards, and I think I've come to the end of my session here. I have a lot of time for interaction, because most of the time this will go with the interaction. And if you are ready with some questions and interaction, I can just go with that. I did not rush up. Actually, I went little, according to me, little slow. Now I leave it to the people to actually go through this.
Thank you.
I stop sharing.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we have certain questions already there. So like we have a question that, it may be easier to teach on the online platform in theory courses, but what about a course like aerospace? So is that feasible to be taught on the online teaching medium?
Yeah, basically it depends on what type of tools you have. It's true that in online teaching, people think that online teaching is teaching on the whiteboard or a blackboard and then telecasting the entire video. If you think so, then definitely that is the limitation of that particular system. I would say online teaching is the amalgamation of the tools. I am an aerospace engineer and mechanical with mechanical background. Use a lot of tools for it, especially when you are looking at the animation of the engines, aerospace engines, and animation of the mechanism system, animation of the flights. All those things can be easily done, and that is how the online education will become more powerful in such things. In fact, I would say for the social sciences, it may become a little difficult. Basically, because in social sciences, suppose I say I'm teaching language, suppose I'm teaching some sort of, like a drama. I need to enact a drama in front of my computer or something, and unless the facial expressions are seen properly, I may not reach them. But of course, in such cases, like we want my people to be seen to me, or the personal touch is required in social sciences. But in other cases, actually, we may not. Of course, it is required, but compared to that, this is much having a better advantage. I hope I answered that particular question. So the answer is very simple. If you have proper tools and also you know how to use that tools to your advantage, definitely the online teaching for any type of courses will be very good.
Sir, there are a couple of questions on ICT. So Mr. Anil Singh Chauhan is asking, are there any free versions available of ICT tools? And to that, I'll add the Ushwinder sir's question that most of these ICT tools seems reasonably easy to use for science and technology people. But what about social sciences?
Okay. Recently, I'll tell you one thing. This is one sort of usual phobia we have. Basically, if you are able to operate your mobile, then I think you can do anything in the ICT tool. I think when MS Team was introduced to us, there was one session by the management of the Amity school to come and then teach us how to use MS Team, because first time the people were trying to use. But now actually it has become very easy for us. If you are able to chat through your, the WhatsApp, probably you know it. If you try to leave this phobia, automatically it goes. I'll tell you, I am born in 1964 and I graduated in 1981. At that time, even computers were not available at a lower end schools or lower end computer science schools. And of course, the other sciences like mechanical engineering never even saw the thing. And people were thinking that in a teaching, operating a computer is very complicated. Now it has become so easy. It becomes easy to you try to involve in it. So what I suggest is, please keep away the phobia that I am from so and so, I may not be able to do. It is a very simple tool. If you are able to chat in a mobile, if you are able to send some messages in mobile, doesn't take more time actually, maybe 2 days or 3 days of effort, immediately you'll be able to do. Anyway, you are good at making PPT now, you are good at using Word, you are good at sending mails, and mail merge you are using. So one by one you can keep learning. There are a lot many tools which are available. In the ICT tools, when you say, I took ICT in many things. See, for example, I took ICT, that open resources in ICT, and the ICT, the meet forms are there, which are also available, which I just covered in my class, in my session completely, which are free as well as paid. And similarly, I also looked at virtual labs and also the learning management system. All this amalgamation has to be there for using as an effective ICT tool. Okay, next question.
Sir, there are again some questions specifically on the use of LMS. So I don't think we will be able to do that here. So they are asking how to record a video or how to create a quiz, how to add a YouTube video on LMS. And then somebody is asking, is it permitted to use the NPTEL course content on LMS?
Yes, yes. I'll tell you one thing, one by one I'll answer. It's a very simple thing. Suppose if somebody is using ALMS, actually, recently we had about 4 days complete training of Amity University, Haryana, and I took the lead here to teach all of them. But of course, all of them were taught earlier also, but not to effectively being used. Now we are using it. To such an extent, actually, we also have liberal arts people who are just artists, and we actually, ask them to also to use LMS. It's possible. One by one, I'll tell you. NPTEL course video, it is free. It's an addition, and it's a free repository. Anybody can actually keep, connect that particular video link into your LMS. It is permitted. It is permitted, and the government of India has paid a lot of money, invested a lot of money onto it, and therefore it can be used. Number one. Suppose you want to add any of these video, lectures into LMS. What you need to do, there is an option as add video. Go to that video and put a link only. Usually, better you always put a link. And suppose, let me say that you have lot many videos, and all of them will go more than let me say 1 GB. Please put them in your what is called Google Drive, And from the Google Drive, you give a link there only, so LMS becomes light. And whenever the student wants to download it or read it, it's only the bandwidth which is required. So now it is not downloading by LMS. There is one problem with most of the LMS is basically the bandwidth. Suppose LMS is actually, reaching lot many people, then immediately bandwidth will be slowing down because it is trying to slice down. See, for example, about 1 lakh people using, 1 lakh people have to get, at least fraction of second. So it starts slicing the time. When it starts slicing the time, probably everybody will feel, it's slow. So then what we should do basically is very simple. Most of the repositories should be kept somewhere and then give a link only. And in fact, of course, you have a very big PDF file and that PDF is having a lot of color photos, etc. and so on. I would suggest please keep it in the Google Drive and then you access only through the Google Drive. This is the way actually you can do. It's very easy. You can go through that any of these options. Many of the LMSs apart from ALMS are also there where actually you can use it. Of course, there are, for example, Moodle. All of you can actually sign in Moodle. It's a free of cost. Create your own content. And of course, there is a, a platform in the Moodle. There are about nearly about 1 lakh people who will help you. Just put a question, immediately somebody will help you how to upload, how to do this, etc. Of course, if you just go through the FAQ itself, you will learn. We need to have a little more, time and then try to get into that. That is my answer for this particular question.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Dr. Sangeeta Gupta is asking, is there any virtual lab freely available for pharmaceutical sciences field which might help in designing experiments?
This I have not seen. Basically, I am not aware of it. Basically, the VLab which we find in by this is more of biomedical is there. A few biomedical is there, not in pharmacy. I've seen biomedical because I use the biomedical virtual labs, as a trial for our own students here. And it works well actually. Biomedical is very good. Pharmaceutical I have not seen. Maybe I think we'll have to explore it.
Okay. Sir, another question is, how can a teacher monitor the learning of students through ICT?
Yeah, lot many options are available. As I said earlier, see, for example, if you are using LMS, let me say, through LMS, it's much easier. What you can do, suppose I'm teaching through LMS and suddenly I will put a question, a quiz question. Now the quiz question is a short question with options or without option or a short answer. People will immediately be alert and they will type some answer. And I don't have to actually, suppose it's a class of 100 and I cannot read all of them. I would have actually framed a solution to it and then given the solution to the LMS directly, and it tells me that how many of them are correct and how many of them are not correct, and the result is immediately coming through. There is one more which is called a flag opportunity in LMS, ALMS, most of the LMS. Suppose I am teaching now, immediately I will see that there are, let me say, 10 red flags. It means that 10 of the people are not happy with me. And there could be also, I can see some of the green flags. I will say that, okay, these people are happy with it. Or at the end of, let me say, 5-minute lecture or 10-minute lecture, I'll interrupt and say, how do you feel? Immediately I'll find a flags, and the flags are counted and it tells me immediately, these many flags are good, these many are average, these many are not good, and so on. This is the way actually I can keep understanding the learner. How do we evaluate them? They should take the test, they should take the assessment, they should go through it. Basically, I will tell you, if you want to use the LMS to the complete extent, then the evaluation, all the internal evaluation, at least to start with, should go through LMS only. Suppose I have uploaded so many repositories and the student go home or to the hostel and then start accessing in the night or in the early morning or some other hours. Now this artificial intelligence which is attached with it will try to understand how the student's pattern is there for learning. And then it will give a message to the faculty, look, this particular student is actually searching for so-and-so material in your, the portfolio. So therefore, if you want to help him out. It will also identify the people who are not actually, active at all. It will say that, look, this person is not at all active and you can do it. I will tell you my own experience. Actually, I, myself registered for one of the course in Internshala, and I could not access it for more than a week or so. And I got a message from them stating that you have accessed, last access is so much and so on. So do you need any help? And immediately I sent a message. Do you think that somebody is handling? No, it is all the artificial intelligence which is handling that. I said that, yeah, I was busy with the webinar, etc. and so on. So I'll be reading it from next week. Immediately the chat bot actually tells me that next week means what date. Nobody is there to expand, writing it. Actually, it is all the chatbot which is going through. I think all of you know about robotic process analysis, RPA, and this RPA actually does all this. This is how it goes through. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, there is one last question that I can see here right now. People are complimenting you for your crisp lecture and instructions. So they are saying that, when we are talking of taking class online, we need to look at certain aspects. So faculty training is one thing. Then we also need to train the students. And then there also has to be a compatibility of the skills of the teacher and the learner. So what would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, lastly, I will tell you that usually the students are smart enough. They are more smarter than us. In fact, if you give a mobile to your kid, the kid will explore everything before you could explore it. And they can actually learn themselves. Of course, little training is required. But for faculty, it is very much required because it has to be very effective. There is one more challenge for the faculty. I think recently it has become an issue. If you are teaching in a class, only students will be watching you. If you are teaching in a webinar, the parents will be watching. And their comments with the students, I mean, their kids is going to be really, really troublesome. Many a time, especially the kids, lower level, parents will actually interrupt in between, and that's really a challenge. And you need to be a very, very, calm person to handle all this and so on. Of course, it's a challenge, but once when it becomes inevitable, automatically things will also become much easier. I will be always an optimistic. Of course, there are difficulties. I will not say. I would have actually expected some question like, can you say what is the limitation of ICT tools? That was the expectation which I was getting. When we say so many good things about it, the question should also be there, what are the limitations of it? I think the limitations are these, which questions they have asked now. I mean, the last question, these are the major limitations, as well as how do you overcome that is this particular one. I think I just, made myself very clear within the 1 hour time. If more time was there, I would have gone through. Of course, there are other speakers who also would like to engage. So I made my time management very quickly, correctly, because 4 o'clock you have another session. I respect the time also.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for accepting our invitation to be a resource person for the speaker, for this FTP. Thank you, sir.
Thank
I
you
would
all.
like, yes, ma'am. Sir, thank you.
Thank you all for inviting me. Thank you so much.